Addai Professor Jonas Addai Mensah holds BSc, MSc, and PhD degrees in chemical engineering from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana, Technon Israel Institute of Technology, and the University of Queensland, Australia, respectively. He is a distinguished professor of chemical engineering, University of South Australia, UNISA, and former Dean of Research Education and Associate Director, Minerals of the Ian Wack Research Institute, UNISA. He has 30 years of experience in academia, teaching, research and industrial consultancy in hydrometallurgy, minerals processing, colloid science, and power technology with applications to precious, critical, and energy minerals or metals, material processing, and sustainability. He has published over 400 book chapters, journal, and peer-reviewed conference articles in the fields of chemical engineering, extractive metallurgy, and resource engineer. Please, with much anticipation, let's welcome our guest, Professor Jonas Addai Mensah, to present for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. And also before that, thank you very much, Abigail, and your friend Agnes, who facilitated for me to know what to do on this special occasion. I hope you can see my PowerPoint presentation on the screen.
Yes, please, we can.
Okay, thanks for confirming. All right, today I'm going to talk about something that perhaps you hold very dear in your hearts as students of current graduates or current national service personnel hoping to finish your national service and do something else with your life. And one of the things that you might be interested in as a young engineer or graduate might be studies abroad. So the topic, securing funding for postgraduate studies overseas, from my current perspective, is very pivotal. And I'd like to share this experience on two fronts. One, as somebody who has benefited from such scheme twice earlier in my life, and two, from somebody who has offered or awarded several postgraduate scholarships to overseas students all over the world. Means that I have wealth of experience and knowledge on the subject. I'm quite delighted to share with you today. When it comes to securing international student fellowships, there are 6 critical points that I would like to expatiate on: the whys, the whats, the how, the where, the who, and when. First of all, for anybody to want to pursue academic studies abroad from wherever they are on the planet has to go with an inherent motivation. And if we ask individually, the people on the forum today, everybody will come up with their reason or reasons. Some may include seeking higher knowledge, seeking skills upgrade, seeking new opportunities, or becoming more competitive in your qualifications as an engineer, scientist, or whatever skills you specialize in. There are also some compelling reasons why people want to study. And partly, one could allay this to the fact that sometimes, due to some acute or prolonged socioeconomic challenges, people, especially the youth, face or are confronted with very high unemployment rates, regardless of the country. I remember the years of GFC, global financial crisis. There were a sudden increase in the number of postgraduate students seeking scholarship.
You are in a seminar.
Both locally and internationally. Can somebody mute their mic? I get an interference. Very much. So there was a case where 2008-9, we faced global financial crisis and multitude of students turn up at the doors of the universities in Australia. Everybody seeking admission to do postgraduate, master's, or PhD. So sometimes it's the sign of the times that the youth Sorry
Hello,
about
please,
that.
if you join, kindly mute your microphone for us. Thank you.
Anyway, so I'm sure combination of all the above might be the reason why people want to embark on studies abroad. First of all, if you want to study abroad, there are things you need to be aware of, especially if you want to have an easy ride in terms of language. Looking for scholarship in English-speaking country as a Ghanaian is an advantage. And I'll give you a reason why. In 1985, I was a young, fresh chemical engineer who had just finished my national service. And I had a very good scholarship to travel to Israel to do my master's in chemical engineering. Now, here is the case where for doing masters, I had to pass 8 courses, and 6 of them were given in Hebrew. And I have to write from right to left in Hebrew. I didn't have any knowledge at all in Hebrew language. So I go to lectures in Hebrew, I took Hebrew 101, and whilst I was studying Hebrew, I was taking exams in Hebrew. So only 2 out of the 8 courses that was given in English. So it was a very big challenge. And not many people may be language philic and have the capacity to master in foreign languages than English. Got so good, there are about 5, 6 countries which educate people English as a formal or first language. And I've listed the obvious countries here, as you can see. Canada, USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand are your typical first English speaking countries. And if you're interested in master's or PhD or diploma, you could look out for these countries. Scholarships are available for full financial tuition and stipend coverage. But these, I must say, are generically competitive. So you have to put your best foot forward when you are applying. And I'll tell you some of the ways you can improve the odds in your favor and minimize the odds against you. Where do you get information? The source of information that we all, including the professors and the vice chancellors, administrators of the university, are Google and Yahoo. There might be that you might even know. But these are the instruments as search engines that you have at your disposal. Now, there are cases where deals have been brokered between governments to foster the provision of scholarship to citizens of certain countries. And some of these you might be very familiar with are given here. Commonwealth scholarships, British Council Awards, Australian Awards, and German DAD Awards, as a few examples. Between universities, you could also have MOU-based scholarships. And I'm exemplifying this when in 2006, I visited UMatt and invited the then Vice Chancellor, Professor Mrekujima, who is in the middle of the picture you see there, and initiated the collaborative scheme of awarding scholarships for PhD to UMatt graduates. This was brokered and executed in 2007. And it is after which the Vice Chancellor, Professor Mrekujima, visited University of South Australia to initiate the whole process that is captured in photograph over here. And as a result, I could tell you today there are about 35 former UMatt students who have taken scholarship at UniSA and completed their PhDs. So that's how some way students can get scholarships. Apart from the governmental and bilateral agreements between UMatt or KNUST or University of Ghana and a foreign university, there are generic scholarships where individual students like you can search on the web and apply various times of the year. And I've given particular examples of about 5, 6 of what types of scholarships are available Now, you may fancy certain countries over others, or you might not even be aware there might be subtle or significant differences between particular countries that you may apply. But I'll give you a few examples of the subtle differences or similarities between the English-speaking countries which offer scholarship to foreign students, just like you and I. Canada. Why do students prefer going to Canada? Because based on quality of education and lifestyle of students, this is from students' perspective, Canada has been ranked for a while as #1 in the world for students' education offered through international scholarship. So that's take-home message. If you fancy Canada, I'm not surprised. Australia, this is where I am right now. According to United Nations, as a country, Australia is the second best country in the world. And what metrics are we basing this on? Quality of life, quality of education, luxurious scholarship, and lifestyle. Now, I'm not talking about just student lifestyle, but lifestyle of all people who live in Australia, including students. So remember, the ranking here is based on generic for the entire population, whereas Canadians' #1 ranking is based on quality education and lifestyle of students only. Okay. If you fancy UK, that's brilliant, because UK has an amazing academic reputation that goes long, long way back in a couple of centuries. The country is tolerant, multicultural, and multiracial. Scholarships in UK, if you can secure one, are very luxurious. There is a small country called New Zealand next to Australia. It has one of the best education systems in the world. So just for you to know, if you have an opportunity to secure a scholarship in New Zealand, then that's good for you, because it has one of the highest levels of literacy in mathematics and sciences, including engineering sciences. And if you search for New Zealand schools, then New Zealand government scholarship, Sir Neil Isaac's scholarships are very popular and generous. What can I say about USA? It has the most valued international universities in the world. It has excellent student support facilities, excellent international reputation, and the country produces high quality students with millions of skills and postmodern technologies at their disposal. Here, I give you specific universities you can directly search who award a plethora of scholarships to students to do graduate studies. Now, the difference between the British type of classification and the North American is that in the British system, if you're doing master's or PhD, you are a postgraduate. In Canada and US, you are a graduate student. So that's the terminology. As used here, graduate means postgraduate. That's subtle word change. Anyway, these schools listed here, from Saskatchewan down to Toronto, offer scholarships generously to international students. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to send to Priscilla and Agnes this file of slides so that at your own leisure, you could browse through and you don't have to copy right now. So you can pay attention. I'll send them to you. Anyway, these are some of the schools, and like I said, you don't have to memorize them or write them down. You get a copy of my slides. Copyright unprotected, so you can use them. Our very own Australia about specific scholarships. Now, this is by no means the entire list. It's just an example to show you that there are about 42 universities in Australia which are public. I'm not counting the private ones. And you can take the catalog and go through all of them, because each university has competitive scholarships to give. And I'm just being biased with UniSA, University of South Australia, on top. It doesn't mean it is the number one provider. It's one of the many universities which offer international scholarship to foreign students. So from UniSA through Deakin, Sydney, La Trobe, Monash, Melbourne, Adelaide. Here in Adelaide, we have 3 universities which are public ones. University of South Australia, University of Adelaide, and Flinders University of South Australia. Then my own alma mater, University of Queensland, and a few more you can go through. Now, again, Australian government has got Australia Award Scholarship, and it gives more scholarship for masters than PhD. But albeit it's a good scholarship because the stipends are very fantastic, and it comes with return air tickets and things like that, with family support. If you are married, your spouse may be taken care of if they come with you under Australian Award Scholarship. Okay. There are certain types of specific scholarships that when you apply to study in Australia, you might take a note. The devil is in the details. And I've shown you here by an exemplary case where you read at the top RTP, UPS, IRTS. These are types of scholarships. So when you see them, they address different criteria. And typically they award $28,000 plus tax-free, minimum $28,000 tax-free as a student. So you get about, every 2 weeks, you get about $1,200 in your pocket for moderate student living. Maybe you can buy a good second-hand car for $5,000, $10,000 as a student. But you have to live modestly. It's nowhere going to make you rich, but it's a very good value for money scholarship. And in Adelaide here too, you get University of Adelaide International Award Scholarship. Examples are UTS, University Technology of Sydney. And then there are other scholarships, which you might see when you search on Yahoo or Google for very specific Australian scholarships. So from Australia, you go to UK. There are specific scholarships which you find every day. But all these are indicative rather than the totality of scholarships in the UK. Example, Edinburgh University Scholarship, Bristol, Gay's Cambridge, Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, University of Newcastle, and so on. For specific scholarships in the US for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, you have to do a whole day's search because there are heaps of scholarships which may populate 5 to 10 pages. So I did not attempt to fill the page because we will be here forever. The only thing about US is that most universities require you to show your GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, Ielts test scores. And you know, if you do an Ielts test or TOEFL, just registering to take the test will cost you a cool $250 to $300 US. And for most Ghanaian students, that's too much money. So if you apply for US or Canadian school, please make sure they waive some of these tests, because if you want to register for GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, and IELTS, in order to get the scholarship, that could be a bottleneck, right? Or even a barrier that blocks you completely. Now, 70% of students who have the desire to apply for scholarship or even the need to study abroad, where some of these test scores are required, fail to do so because of their inability to get money to register. Now, I must particularize few cases of scholarship for women in STEM when it's searching for scholarships in the US. There are particular scholarships reserved for women to bring their numbers to par with men, because in the area of STEM, it's been known for a long time that there are fewer women than men. So example of such scholarship reserved for women only are given here. So you could watch out for those if you are a female. There are cases where countries such as Germany, Norway, Sweden, which are not first English-speaking countries, but do offer scholarships and studies in English for international students. Some of these scholarships can be found on the web. And if you don't know them, you can search for German government scholarships, DAD scholarship, Hall scholarship, and others, if you use the right search match. Generically, Europe has a number of scholarships to give. The Netherlands government, the Austrian government, the Irish government and a few other governments offer general scholarship to all nationalities. So don't just think about the English-speaking 5, the group of 5, because you might find a very good scholarship at a very good university, like 20 or Delft in Holland, which are very prestigious. There are Italian scholarships, Bologna scholarships, German, Norway presidential scholarship, Romanian government scholarships, which are all generous if you can win them. And how to win some of these, I will show you later. The first way of satisfying scholarship application requirement is your ability to communicate fluently. And even in non-English speaking countries, they would typically require evidence of English proficiency, even if the natural language of that country is not English. So be aware, again, I remind you, and there are ways to circumvent this requirement, and I'll explain shortly. Now, most universities will require Ielts, and Ielts, for those who don't know, International English Language Testing System. TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. These two are usually or typically mandatory for you to show a proof of your test scores. Like I said before, 75% of students don't apply for scholarship due to their inability to pay for and sit and pass Ielts or TOEFL. Can you study abroad without Ielts and TOEFL tests? The answer is yes. And I'll show you later. So now that you are aware that scholarships are available in various countries, and there are certain requirements that have to be met, and provided you can meet those requirements, you are happy to have a folder and document all the requirements that have to be met to win the scholarship. One of the things you have to ask yourself, what degree program am I aiming at? Is it postgraduate diploma? Is it master's? Or is it PhD? And depending on the criteria for each university, you might be able to move from bachelor degree qualification straight to do a PhD. And about 35 UMass students who won scholarship to study at UniSA, University of South Australia, every one of them just had bachelor degree. And within 3.5 years, they studied for PhD without the master's transition and qualified for their doctorate degrees. But I must say not every university gives that step change from from bachelor straight to PhD. Like Ghana, some Australian universities and foreign universities would require you to do master's or MPhil before you embark on PhD, if that is your ultimate goal. Now, even before you discuss whether it's going to be master's by research or master's by research and coursework, you have to have a research area of interest when it comes to the research component. And the question is, have you thought about an area of research interest, a topic? Because in most cases, if you're going to do master's or PhD by research, which is what 80% of these programs do, you have to have a research topic. Is it going to be hydrometallurgy or physical separation, like dense media, magnetic, electrostatic kind of technologies, or our usual friend, crop rotation? And if you're a mining engineer, you might be interested in rock mechanics, geostats, or geomechanics, and mine design. And if you're material science and engineering focused, you might think about something in terms of advanced material. Or if you're a chemical engineer, there are a plethora of process engineering topics, in addition to hydrometallurgy and physical separation. Now, if you don't know, check your undergraduate courses. Which one took your fancy? Which area? Is it process control? Is it transport phenomena? What subjects do you like most and enjoy most? Think about it. Because for a supervisor to elect to accept you to do a master's or PhD, they would like to know if you fit into their scholarship program based on specific projects. You can't just say, I want to go and study process control because you saw an advertising for bachelor, master's, PhD studies in process control, where there is money to be offered as scholarship, but you have no interest or you didn't do well at all in process instrumentation and control courses, which you took. Okay, so you got a topic and you have an area of research interest. You read a bit more about it before you start searching for potential universities which offer such research programs. The thing then you do is to zoom in on certain departments. Is it going to be mining, metallurgy, chemical engineering, petroleum engineering, petrochemical, whatever it is? Go to that department, look for potential supervisor. Now, do you just go to any department? Well, you go to the universities which advertise scholarships. That's what you do. If you know that there is a University of Sydney scholarship, advertise. read it carefully. The devil is in the details. It might be a scholarship for studies in sustainability, environmental engineering, materials engineering, or minerals engineering. If that is the case, go to the department, faculty, or staff member list. And normally, if you go online and you Google, you will find the list of academic staff of their research areas of interest. Don't mark around, just write to them that you are interested in some of their topics or research programs. Establish a link and a rapport, right? Very, very important, because no academic staff would offer you a scholarship without knowing a little bit about you and your interests in that area. So write to them, approach them way before the deadline of application. And I'll give you an example. In most Australian universities, deadline for master's PhD application for international students is 31st of August every year. So by February, March, you should be thinking about specific universities and staff that you need to contact for that case and build links. And when you write to them, you communicate your interest in the research program and provide a copy of your CV and transcripts, right? So they will be able to tell you are academically capable, analytically strong to work with them. So provide a little bit of information about your background with CV and transcripts. I promise you I'll talk about how to get around TOEFL and Ielts requirements. Now, English language proficiency is usually mandatory for almost all universities because you have to communicate in writing, in reading, and in speaking as a postgraduate student. And the way to address this issue when it comes to, say, universities is for you to make, as soon as you graduate, you go to your registrar's office and ask for a copy of English language proficiency certificate, original. Maybe if they are generous, ask for a few copies, right? And color photocopy them and keep the original or the original. So when a TOEFL or IELTS requirement comes in, you produce such certificate and write a nice explanatory letter, attach it and forward to the graduate school, right? Now, this proficiency certificate has to be printed on headed or stamped paper or letter. And it should show evidence that your previous education was in English medium and you have excellent proficiency in reading, writing, and speaking English. If you do all this and you send it to the graduate school, 9 out of 10, you will have no problem, and the TOEFL or IELTS requirement will be dropped, saving you about $500 US. So you have a way of meeting the TOEFL or Ielts requirement. That's good. The majority of the battle for the competition of giving number of scholarship for any university is yet to come, and it starts with this page. If I use an Australian model, there is considerable weight on your undergraduate achievement, your transcript. Suffice to say, or needless to say, by now, if you have finished your bachelor or master's degree, what it is what it is. You can't go back and say that, oh, if I did much better in fourth year, I would have got GPA average of 92. It's gone, it's gone. Let's move forward. But I'll show you how it is done in order to separate the wood from the trees. Okay. Typically in Australia, all graduate schools rank students in order of merit based on 100 percentage points. And these points are carved into 6 different areas, with the undergraduate achievement shown on your undergraduate transcript taking 50%, 50 points. Now, reference report, 10 points. Area of research, including the kind of supervisor you choose, 10 points. Most recent degree, 25 points. Relevant work experience can be 5 or higher points. Publications can be 5 or higher points, and I'll explain why. Now, most recent degree, 25 points. Relevant work experience, up to 10 points. Publication, 5 or more. Why? Because we have 2 ways of classifying potential postgraduate. They either come to as stream 1 applicants or stream 2. And I'll explain what stream 1 means. If somebody finished their bachelor degree and did teaching assistantship, and then went PhD without significant work experience, they fall in stream 1. If somebody finished bachelor 10 years ago and worked with a mine company for 5 to 8 years after they've done teaching assistantship at UMass or KNUST, then they have more years of experience than the stream 1 candidate. So we don't compare apples with bananas. We compare apples with apples. And therefore, we have 2 ways of assessing these 2 different candidates with different work experiences and background skills. How do we do it? Like I said, when we score you, we check your undergraduate transcript and literally reduce whatever numbers you have in terms of your grades for various courses you did. 50 points. Referee report, 10 points. Now, let me say something about referee report. It's so damn important to have the right reference that if you score 6 out of 10 for referee report, you are most likely to miss out of a scholarship, even if you score very well in other areas. The reason for that is that when you look at the international pool of talents of applicants, and you get those applicants from certain countries, such as India and China, who in their numbers, sheer numbers, would outnumber any specific country by 20 to 100 to 1, then you would understand that just even decimal point 1 can make or break you from getting scholarship. As a dean, I was witness to cases where somebody missed out because we cut off the scholarship at 75.2 and somebody got 75.1 instead of 0.2, so they missed out. Anyway, we'll talk about referee reports later. Then area of strength. This will never be known to a student. If you choose a supervisor whose ranking in that university is very high, you get 10 points. If you choose one who is not so high, you might get 5, 6, 7 points. And that you never know, so you don't have control over it. If you just finished bachelor degree and did teaching assistantship for a year or 2, and you didn't have any significant work experience, like 10 years of professional experience, you go to what we call stream 1. And again, I must say, this model of assessment is an Australian model. New Zealand uses similar model. Okay, so your most recent degree is bachelor. And the question is, what class in bachelor? Is it a first class honors? Is it second class honors? That is the question. If it is first class, second upper, and so on, you get 25 points. Now, publication. If you're under stream 1 and you get 2 peer-reviewed publications, and again, this is very damn important. If you get 2 UMAT biennial conference publications that has been shown to be peer-reviewed, get 5 points. Because if 0.1 of a point can make or break you, then it tells you that for your 4th year project, which you did, if it is publishable, ASAP, have it published, because it may stand between you and the holy grail of winning scholarship if you don't manage to publish just in time. Okay, for stream 2, somebody who left the uni 10, 8, 7 years ago and went to work for a company, either doing research or processing, right? But they managed to go to conferences that are technical and publish some of their work in peer review forums. They can manage to publish 8 articles, each one worth 2.5, right? And score 20. Now, if you're stream 1, fresh from uni, within a year or 2, you can't get more than 5 points. You cannot get more than 5 points from publication because your most recent degree gives you 25 points. So you cannot double dip right? But somebody who doesn't get 20 because they finished long ago, not recently, they make up for the 30 points by list of publications and work experience, right? Now, later on, when you get a copy of this presentation, figure it out, you will understand how the points are calculated. Okay. How do you score your undergraduate to get a 50 points? First of all, it starts with your transcript. The first thing we do is that all engineering degrees are 4-year based. So we look at the raw numbers for each year. The first year is not scored. Again, let me say this is Australia's system. First year is not scored. The last 3 years are considered for scoring. So if you got distinctions and higher distinctions in first year, between 80 and 100 in the first year, but you manage to get 70s and no 80s or 90s in the second, third, fourth year, then you are at disadvantage. The scoring system rewards those who finish strongly. So anyway, if you ignore the first year scores, then we look at your A's and B's and convert them into raw numbers based on the interpretation the university gives for A. If A is 80 to 100, then the A's, if it's scored in A's and B's, will be converted to raw percentage numbers. Once converted, the number of high distinctions, credits, and passes and fails are entered in the formula, which will calculate the weighted average and awards a score out of 50 points. The higher the grades, the higher the score, and the maximum is 50. So this is how it is done. Like I said, if you got an A in Australia, you get a GPA of 7. Maybe in UMass or Ghana, you get an A. At KNUST or somewhere, you got an A. But in Australia, if you got an A, it's a 7. The 7 will be equated to a number 85 to 100. And it has a weighting of 50. So if it is 86, you get 50. If it is 90, you get 50, right? As long as you are in that band. If you get a B, what in Australian terms means 75 to 84. So you get 40. And so on and so forth, right? So in the end, all your grades will be converted and the average of the average will be found. Now, what that means is that your entire third, fourth year, second year, minus the first year, will be averaged and scored out of 50. Now, I must say, anybody who gets less than 40 will not normally get scholarship, right? So to be competitive, you have to score between 40 and 50. You can get an admission with 35 or 38. You can get an admission with 35 or 38. However, it will be full fees paying because you miss out of scholarship. So undergraduate is scored on a 50-point basis maximum. When scoring undergraduate degree, the first 12 months of your course is not scored. I've just said it, so I'll not labor that point anymore. If you completed or currently in progress with one undergraduate degree, then that degree, which is your recent, will be scored. If more than one degree is relevant and you present both for first degrees, the best score will be used. So if you have double major in minerals engineering and environmental engineering, and you are awarded 2 degrees, when you apply, we just give you the benefit of the best score. If more than one undergraduate degree again has been completed, based on the research option you have chosen, the most appropriate undergraduate degree for the proposed research will be scored. So if you're looking for materials engineering and you did better in a double major of materials engineering and environmental engineering or minerals engineering, then I'm saying you have a mismatch because your alignment does not support your strength. Double undergraduate degrees completed simultaneously at the same time are scored as 1 degree. So when you have double major, the way we do it in Australia is that instead of 4-year course for a single degree, you have to do it in 5 years. So you get 1 degree in 4 years and the second degree in the 5th year. That's how it works, so that the double degree is not completed in the same year. It is possible a non-degree first qualification like a diploma can be taken as an undergraduate degree under certain circumstances. And you have to do makeup courses when you enroll at the master's level. Referee reports, 10 points. And you need 2 referees to do that. So each referee report gives you 5 points maximum. Now, be careful how you do it, because that is one of the easiest ways to score 10 points. If you have the right people to support you. So think about selection of your referees. Suppose you want to do master's or PhD by research. Then obviously, if you did well in your 4th-year research project, then your supervisor or supervisors are the best people. Because if you score an A or B+, then they have good impression about your performance and aptitude towards research. So you use them. Don't select somebody because they are just nice professors or lecturers you know around. Now, because the difference between getting a scholarship based on referee reports can be huge. If somebody just writes, oh, he's a polite girl, he's an obedient boy, he's very active, he helps others, he does this, he does that, but do not underscore that technically, academically, you are within the top 5% of your peers in performance. Then they can praise you like you are one of the best athletes and best choir singer, those things which do not translate into grades. So be strategic, choose academics, because if you choose somebody who is not an academic, remember, we are looking for academic referees, so not professional peers, right? Academic referees who can testify to your academic capability. Now, each referee, at the invitation of the applicant, you have to choose, must provide a written report on the appropriate form that you get from the UniSA or Uni Adelaide or any university website, right? And provide it with supporting documents before the closing date. Late referee reports are thrown in the garbage bin. If two referee reports are not supplied by the supporting documents at the closing date, the application will not progress. To ensure the authenticity of the referee report, we don't accept it when provided by the applicant themselves, right? It has to come from the referee. So you have to give the address of the Graduate Research Center or the graduate school directly to the referee for them to submit directly to the right people. Normally, most universities will not accept referee reports from generic email accounts, Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, right? They don't come through that avenue. It has to come from an institution email address. If that is not available, then the referee is advised to do things recommended by the university if they don't have institutional email account, right? Like the signature page may be authenticated with a university stamp, with a headed letter statement accompanied from the university where they work. That's how you do it. Otherwise, you jeopardize your chances. Now, on the referee report, in most applications, there are two sections. One addresses research potential, and the other, ability for the candidate to complete higher degree by research. And so the referee or both referees have to address that meticulously. Other sections of the form are normally not scoring, but they are used psychologically to check for consistency and verification of the facts and figures provided by the applicant. And the referee will fill in those parts as well. As a reminder, choice of referees is absolutely critical. How is professional experience scored? If you worked 6 to 12 months as a teaching assistant prior to applying for scholarship, immediately after getting your bachelor degree, then your professional experience is ranked 2 points. Between 1 and 2 years, 4 points. For 5 years or more, 10 points. And this allows people who have not been in studies for up to 5 or 6 or longer years after their bachelor to get points. This is the case for stream 2. Now, publications, how are they counted? Publications are valued very, very seriously because it demonstrates how the applicant has professionally communicated and proven that he is very proficient in English. So if you have publications, which most applications would require, you have to photocopy the first page of the publication, whether it's a peer-reviewed conference or a journal article. Even if it is a local university article and it's peer-reviewed, just provide the evidence. Ghana Mining Journal is just fine as Minerals Engineering International Journal. You get the same point. So local journals are not inferior for an applying PhD student. You have to provide publication details. Otherwise, you stand the chance of losing 5 points in stream 1 student application or 20 points in stream 2 student application. If you don't provide the right details, showing the front page and the page number and evidence of peer review, the publication part will not be scored, and as a result, not considered as part of the scholarship ranking. This is the number of points you get for various classes of publications. If you publish a book, whether as a single author or a joint authorship, you get 25 points. And it goes down from edited books through journal articles, full written conference paper, right? E1 is ranked the same as scholarly article in a journal, 5 points each. If you write an abstract, you get 0.5 of a point. So every little bit helps, right? There is a cap on the number of points you can get for publication if you are in stream 1 or stream 2. But regardless, in each stream, you have maximum 5 for stream 1, fresh graduates, and 20 points for experienced graduates if they have published that many. So to get 20 points from an experienced graduate who finished 5 years ago, they only have to produce 4 peer-reviewed conference or journal papers to get 20 points. Now, the most recent degree, which is your bachelor degree, that gets 25 points. How is it scored? If you get first class, H1, in the University of South Australia system, H1, first class, you can go straight from bachelor degree to PhD without master's. And that's what the eligibility table here shows. Now, in the same city, University of Addai, opposite University of South Australia, where this classification works, you get H1 first class in whatever engineering program. You can only do master's or MPhil. So note the difference. I'm not saying that this is the case as shown here for all Australians. About 50% would accept bachelor to PhD. About 50% would accept bachelor to master's first, like in Ghana. Okay, so if you have first class or second upper and master's degree, you obviously master's degree, go to PhD. If you have second class, upper, master's degree, whether by coursework or by full research, you go to PhD still. If you have second class upper with master's coursework, with minor research component, you go to PhD. But you have to have some publication, right? If you have master's by coursework, no research component, you need 10 points from publication to help you make a strong case for first class for PhD. Anyway, I'll give you the table and you can study. But the important thing is that things are made so easier if you have first class or second upper, right? First class and second upper. And even much easier if you have first class, second upper, and master's degree on top of that. If you have these first two, you don't need publication. However, if you have second upper and you do masters by coursework, you require some publications. And the number of publications increase. If you just have your most recent degree as a coursework, masters, no research at all. The take-home message is that if currently you are embarking on postgraduate degree studies, make sure there is a research component, right? Because most foreign universities, which would admit you for PhD, want to know whether or not you have previous relevant research experience. And that helps. For coursework, you don't need any more evidence than your undergraduate scores. So what we're talking about with research and publication is PhD, which in all countries, if it is professional, doctoral, PhD, you need to do some research. And so prior research is an advantage. Okay. I don't know whether you can see this picture, and you might see some familiar faces of people you know in UMass who had exact experience as foreign students who went through the hoops and hurdles that I've elucidated just now. And I can point to one or two. Dr. Clement Owusu here, Dr. Shadrach Fusu, Dr. Eric Abraham, and of course, yours truly in the back, and Dr. Ishmael Kweku, and Dr. Jennifer McCarthy, who are all UMass former students who came straight from bachelor to PhD. So it's possible that if you do all the right things, choose the right referees, right? choose your research area of interest carefully and show evidence that you have written some research paper, whether journal or conference. You can make it. Timing is very important. Now, there is safety in numbers. I had the privilege of winning 2 scholarships, 2 masters, and to do PhD. In both cases, I was lucky. I was given air tickets by the universities. Now, you may not be that lucky to get air tickets, but it's just sufficient for you to get fully funded for stipend and school fees. Yes, there are 2 components of scholarship. Make sure you tick the boxes if you are applying, as many boxes as possible on the application form for every kind of scholarship, that you don't double dip, right? Because you need all the help as a foreign student. And please read the fine lines of deadlines so that you might meet the date that everything is cut for, right? So timing is very important. Read the fine lines, choose the best referees who can give you the top 5% ranking, even if you are not exactly top 5%. You know what I mean, right? So with that, I've come to the end of my talk, and I'm quite happy to answer some questions. I'll leave the slides on in case somebody have questions on various pages. So over to you, Ms. Moderator. I'm quite happy to take questions.
Thank you, Professor Jonas Addai, for your presentation. We are most grateful, and I'm sure a lot of us have learned a lot from this presentation. We would either put more effort in our academic work or try and get others that could be our supervisors to help us get good qualifications for scholarship. So we have some few questions at the chat section. I'll read them to you. Okay, so from KCG, he's asking, please, sir, what do you mean by excellent education structure with respect to New Zealand?
I don't know about Ghanaian students, but it's very common in Australia for students who have finished bachelor. Now, vicariously, students go to uni in Australia largely from their hometown, home city. Like my daughter, who lives in Adelaide with me, is studying at University of Adelaide, where they offer double major in chemical engineering, computer science, and mathematics, which UniSA doesn't offer, right? Now, it is not very common to have halls of residence in Australia. So 90% students live in residential homes, no halls. I was lucky to live in Unity Hall at KNUST, right, for my bachelor degree. This is not the case for Australia. And so when students want to study, they just live in the same city. Largely. There are students who come from interstate, other states like New South Wales, who come to South Australia and vice versa, different states. Anyway, the idea here is that bachelor degree is foregone, that mostly you stay with your parents for the benefit. Now, I'm not considered poor. So if my kids go to study in Sydney and they have to rent expensive houses, I don't get any government subvention or subsidy because I'm not considered poor. I'm considered rich enough, right? But when it comes to masters and PhD, our children with bachelor degrees scout around. And the way they do that is to look at the university ranking on a world scale, the ranking of universities. If the university is not ranked within the top 400, some students will say, I'm not going to this uni, right? So in each country, you have the same ranking being used in most developed countries of all the universities in the world. And I believe quite recently, there was an article that the University of Cape Coast was one of the highly ranked universities in Ghana, or the top ranked universities. And some countries have the bragging rights that the education system leads to all their universities within the top 300 or the top 400. So it is by international ranking. And there are 3 or 4 systems: the Shanghai ranking, QS ranking system. And I'm not sure how fussy Ghanaian students are when they choose university abroad, whether they look at the ranking of that university or they just follow where the money is. But it is very common in this side of the world to look at the rankings of universities. And you could see whether New Zealand universities are highly ranked, because when the rankings are released yearly, you can see which countries are doing in the top 100. And there are about 20,000 universities which are covered by the ranking. So you can tell. Is that okay for the guy?
Yes, please. I think it's okay for you. Before we continue with the question and answer session, our founder, Mr. Henry Entry, would give a brief presentation as well. So our guest speaker, Mr. Henry Entry, would please take the platform to talk to us. Please, Mr. Henry, if you are online, kindly talk to us.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
All right. It's not a presentation. It's just to compliment and give appreciation to Professor Jonas Addai Mensah. Just to give you a bit of context on how I got to know Prof. One of your graduates, who was a mentee at that time, was working at one of the mines as a metallurgist. And I had been pushing him to do a master's degree after 3 to 5 years experience. So he started applying to various schools. And then he called me up and he said, after 50 applications, he's received 2 half scholarships and 1 full scholarship from Australia. And it was awarded by a professor by the name Professor Jonas Addai Mensah. So I said, so why are you calling me if you have received a scholarship? And he said it's made his life a bit complicated because he's enjoying very good money. He's got prospects to be promoted. And all of a sudden, he's got this PhD scholarship, and he had first degree at that stage. So he's got this PhD scholarship, which means he's even going to jump the masters. And the complication is that the mine was prepared to offer him 1 to 2 years study leave without pay if he was doing a master's. But for a PhD, they think it's too long, so they were not offering any leave without pay. So my advice is you don't even know whether you'll be employed next year or 2 years time or 3 years time. So life is about risks. Take a risk, go and pursue your studies and see what happens. In fact, 2 years after that, there was a massive retrenchment in the gold industry and most of his colleagues were retrenched. So he has since finished his PhD and working in Australia. So I would like to, and at that stage, I had not heard from Prof. So the next time I was visiting Adelaide, one of the UMatt alumnus, he then took me to Prof's house and we had a chat and we've since been getting in touch. It's very late in Australia, so let me again give appreciation to Prof for taking the time to respond to my message to do this presentation and sitting this late. On the lifestyle, I would like to give a bit of comment there. It's very relative. When I was with BHP in the United States, my visa was what they call H-1B visa, which is a professional working visa. And it's 3 years, and you renew it for another 3 years, so 6 years maximum. When it was getting to my 3rd year, the company gave me 2 options. One, to go to Canada at a mine called Ekati mine, which was then going underground, and one to BHP iron ore in Australia. So I pleaded that I spent 2 weeks on each mine site and then assess. Now, when I went to Ekati, which is in the Northern Territory, I've never been so uncomfortable or sad in my life. The temperature was about minus 40 degrees. Very, very cold. So after the 2 weeks, I said, let me go to Australia too. Now in Australia, it was winter. And I was used to the winter in North America, which is very cold and snowy. Now I got to Melbourne and I realized I don't even have to put on a jacket. So I concluded that maybe Australia is the best place to go. So lifestyle is relative. You have to weigh all, if you're not somebody who can cope very well in cold weather, Canada might not be an option for you. Now, Northern Territory is very, very cold. If you go to other parts of Canada, minus 20, minus 10, but it can be very, very cold. That shouldn't stop you from going, but you have to weigh things, especially if you have options. I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge our graduating members, those who are first class, second class, and so on, for the good work that you've done. And we hope that the next batch of scholarships going to be awarded by Prof, some of you will be considered. So well done, and we are very proud of you. On the 25th of November, the AUSIMM had its annual awards, and I was privileged, as you all know, to receive the Resources Sector Award for 2021. And in my acceptance speech, UMatt and the AUSIMM chapter became very prominent. Out of that, 2 fellows of the AUSIMM approached me and they said they want to help. So now, excuse me, I have offers for 2 internships in Australia for members of AUSIMM, but I'm yet to work out the mechanics of how. So these internships will be in Australia at the time to be started. Another update I want to give you is on the Minerals Commission. Now, those of you who have not been following, from 1st of November, nobody has to go to the Minerals Commission to apply for a concession or renew licenses. Now, we've been screaming for the past 10 years to revolutionize the way mining licenses are granted. Now they responded, and now everything has to be online. Now, with all these innovations, there are challenges. So I'm going to challenge the technical committee of this AUSIMM chapter to look into getting the link for the online application and testing the system to see whether it even works. Because typically, if you're applying for concession, it has to give you some geological information and so on. Does it do that? Does it have any challenges? Now, I say this because when I was transferred from the US to Australia, there was a law that any acid generating material has to be dumped in specific areas approved by the Ministry of Environment in Western world, where we have to haul the waste dump for some kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers in some instances. It was costing the mine a lot of money. So we challenged the status quo. I went to the, excuse me, I went to the chief mining engineer and I said, why should we be bearing these costs? We should look at innovative ways of doing this. And he said, it's a law. And I said, well, every law, we have to challenge it. So he gave me 2 mining engineers. We came up with a strategy to encapsulate all this acid generating material that allowed us to dump at the shortest fall. Now we have to present it to the ministry. And this particular work gave us an award when one of the universities was running a series of innovative workshops for us to present our projects. So test the system, give them feedback, and you never know what will come, what will come out of it. The other update is those of you who are geologists and geotechnical engineers. From next year, you have to do competency exams to be run by the Minerals Commission. Now, currently, the safety engineers, mining engineers going through drilling, blasting, silt bosses have to do competency exams. Now they are extending it to geologists and geotechnical engineers. And it's going to be in 4 categories. Geological engineering, senior geological engineers, geological superintendents, and geology managers. The same thing applies to geotechnical engineers, senior geotechnical engineers, geotechnical superintendents, and geotechnical managers. What it means is if you are a graduate engineer and you want to be a geological engineer, you have to take an exam. The mine cannot automatically promote you. You have to pass that competency exams. If you want to go from geological engineer to senior geological engineer or geotechnical engineer, you have to pass that exams. Now, those eligible, that's the qualifications, are mining engineers, geological engineers, civil engineers, rock mechanic engineers, and geophysicists. Those are the categories that can apply either for competencies in geology and geotechnical. The other update is I've been working with some few companies in Ghana. One is called Vital Sources, and they've come up with a scheme to fund those of you who can't get jobs and want to go into small scale mining. And we are developing a model called the Mpuntio model. What it's going to do is, if you are given a concession and you come to us, we will require certain things from you, business planning, how you're going to do your reclamation. If you don't have the expertise, we will provide you that expertise. Now, if the funding requirements is $2 million, for instance, that company will provide you the $2 million and you pay back in the form of gold. So your first maybe few years of production, part of it will go into the payment of the $2 million. And it's a way to fund some of these small scale mines. So those of you who can't get jobs, and it doesn't apply to, it applies also to other industries. If you can't get jobs, the key shortcoming for a lot of you is how to do a business plan. And that requires a bit of entrepreneurial skills and so on. So my next presentation, either at KNUST or UMAT or through Zoom, will be business planning. How do you put together a business plan? If you want small scale mining, what are the things you need to do? You need to do a geological assessment. You need to put together a funding scheme and so on. So I'll go through that so that some of you will be up to the required skills in getting the necessary funding. So thank you very much, Prof, and thank you for all who joined us today. We look forward to more information sessions. And now I hand it over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry Entry, for the wonderful remark you gave. I can see that there are a lot of questions at the chat section. We take just 2 or 3, and the rest will be addressed later on and posted on the page for all. So please, if you still have some questions, you can still send them, they will be addressed. Okay, so from Samuel Bafo AJ, he's asking, Prof, please, talking about conversions of averages to UNISA standards, how is KNUST CWA system, which has 70 as first class, compares to the other school with 80 as first class? And how would you advise a student who has received 70% for graduate school, as in what to do if he or she is not getting full funding?
Okay. let me say this. It's a bit unfortunate with that disparity. The scoring of KNUST was inherited from the British education system. Now, UMAT, which at some point was part of KNUST, had similar grading system. And if you are too young as a graduate who finished quite recently to know. Now, the year was 2006 when I invited the then Vice Chancellor of UMAT and then the then Vice Chancellor of KNUST to Australia to communicate my intention of establishing an MOU to train PhD graduates from Ghana. Long story short, both Vice Chancellors came. One Vice Chancellor took it seriously and led to a signed MOU. And in 2007, I came to Ghana and signed the MOU of UMAT, but KNUST failed to get ready. Now, the first thing I noticed was the old grading system, which existed during my time in the early 80s when I was a student, still persisted. So I pointed it out to the Vice Chancellors, both of them, that it has to be changed. So I remember in 2007, I came to UMAT to give a seminar to the staff, senior staff, lecturers, and professors, the merits of transforming the grading system to the present day grading system. Then I went to KNUST and tried to get the system to acknowledge and change. It was resisted that, oh, Prof, don't worry. We will write notes when we send transcripts for students to foreign universities. And at that time, being a dean in Australia, I remember saying to the provost, who I had, provost of engineering, who at the time I had interactions with, nobody reads the notes you attach. I warned him. Anyway, in the past 20 years, I've been doing this. It is only one KNUST student I have managed to get scholarship to study in Australia compared with about 35 UMAT students. The reason for that is that, sadly, when they put in the 70s for A and the 60s for B, on this scale you see on the screen, you lose marks. Nobody reads. And I remember I had a similar experience with University College of London, which is ranked in the top 10 in the world. And I was teaching a course which I graded with Australian standards, which means these grades you see on the screen. The dean called me and said, Professor, in Australia, you give high marks for students, you give better grades. But in UK, we stick to the 70 to 75 for A students. And I argued the case that if the student scored 95, why should I subtract 20 points to give that student 75? So, well, that is the nature of the beast. That's our system. So we don't give higher marks like you do in Australia. Anyway, I was made to deduct some points off so that the grades will scale down. And that's what we get in KNUST. It disadvantages the student severely. Like I said, I have tried and tried few first-class students, only one of them who finished chemical engineering 6 years ago and did a teaching assistant program. And after that, contacted me. And at that time, I had a colleague who had a hot scholarship. And luckily, Sylvia was admitted to do master's. And after 6 months, they found out that she was that good. So she was transferred to PhD. And within 3.5 years, she finished PhD and got headhunted by a chemical company in Adelaide here about 3 months ago when she finished her degree with a full job and rights to work and stay in Australia. So it's very sad. It's touch and go, right? There are a few cases I've met KNUST engineers studying in Australia. And the point is, if they apply, 10 of KNUST may get lucky, whilst UMAT would, at the same effort, get about 40 students winning the scholarship. So it's just unfortunate. And yes, indeed, I know, I'm aware of it because I was a product of that grading system. So I know it from a historical point of view. That's why in 2007, I tried to change, but UMAT listened and they changed the grading to whatever it is today. And I must say, with that grading, some of the best university scholarships and awards have been won by UMAT students. So don't take it away from UMAT students. They are as competitive as the Australians and they win awards. And I'm sure KNUST are equally brilliant when they get the first class, but with the 70, 75, it doesn't favor them. And the system is so mechanical because all the gradings with the raw numbers are fed into the model by the computer. And the computer does not read any notes written by the dean or the provost or head of department that the 70 to 75 grades are equivalent to 85 to 100 grades of Australia. Nobody takes attention. The argument in the boardroom for deans is that if they are equivalent to 85 to 100, why don't they make that equivalent in Ghana? And they just say that. So nobody believes it, right? It's unfortunate. And it makes fewer number of KNUST eligible for competitive scholarship. The other thing I would add, what Mr. Henry Entry said, is this. Don't back on one horse, right? From my own experience, I had in 2 separate occasions for master's and PhD scholarship, written about 40 applications each. Now, it turns out in my case, coincidentally, even though I posted 40 scholarships or 50 at each time, I was damn lucky to win the scholarship from the first 2 letters. So when extra scholarship came from the remaining 38 or 39 or 40 letters, I was going mad because too many scholarships led to confusion, where to go. So I was damn lucky, right? But I know one guy from UMass who got the best grade of the graduating student of the year. How do I know? Because from 2006 up to 2019, I have attended all the UMass graduation ceremonies. And this guy is now a lecturer in Australia. Now, it turns out he applied for about 60 scholarship applications in all parts of the world, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Germany. And 59 of them rejected him, even with the best scores for that year as the best graduating student. Until I met him the following year and I said, try this for UniSA, University of South Australia. And that was his 61st letter. And he got in, right? He finished in electrical engineering. He wasn't a minerals engineer or chemical engineer. It was electrical. But the point I'm saying is that there is safety in numbers, large number. So don't just take 2 or 3 universities and hope that one of the 2 or 3, right? The sample states have to be many. And if you remember the case where Mr. Henry was exemplifying with one guy who came to Australia, he had applied for as many as 40 and didn't get, and then until he got the timing right for the following year and wrote to me, and I happened to have a scholarship to give him, right? So yes, it's very sad, but that's the case of university or any other university that uses a conservative marking scheme. Nothing can be done about it. All I hope is that the students take a risk and challenge and keep applying, because where there's a will, there's always a way out. And encourage that student to keep trying, because one day the penny will drop and the doors will be open. They don't give up. But nothing anybody can do. It's a university policy. All right. Any other question, please?
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the clarifications. There is one question I would like you to address for us. So there is a person who wanted to answer a question. So he says, thank you very much, Prof, for this elaborative information. My question is in regards to selecting or choosing referees. I am an Erasmus Mundus scholar, currently in my 3rd semester. My program requires that I move to a different university to continue my studies after every 6 months. Hence, you don't really get familiar with the professors. I graduated from UMass in 2016 and would like to ask if it is advisable to still use my bachelor professors as referees for my PhD application.
Yeah, I don't know how many referees that person requires, but at least if he wants to do that, you can use one bachelor and one immediate supervisor. If you can manage to get one of the recent supervisors to act, because if I am assessing this person, then the question I will ask is, well, you worked the last 6 months in this particular university with this particular person. Why didn't you use him or her as a referee? And you still go back to your bachelor degree. Makes people curious. But if you balance it with one from your undergraduate and one from your postgraduate. That makes fair. I know the challenge that he never stays long enough because he's here today, gone tomorrow. But when you are okay or good or very good, in fact, within 3-4 months, people should appreciate your competence and therefore should be able to give you a good referee report. So the balance is very important. That's what I would say. We can answer 5 more questions and then you could send the other questions to me later. 5 more.
Yes, please. Okay. The next question says, Prof, I would like to use this opportunity to thank you for the insights concerning the procedures and the requirements for applying for graduate learning scholarships, since this has been a challenge for me for some time now. But I have a question I would kindly seek your opinion on. On my quest to apply for some scholarship opportunities, I was open to various CV requirements, which differs from country to country. Therefore, I would like to know if Australia also has their own CV style or consideration parameters.
You're talking about curriculum vitae CV?
Yes, please.
I don't know what young people populate on their CVs these days, but if I would explain what as a potential candidate for scholarship you should put, right? You put information details. You don't have to put your date of birth. Those are not critical. But you put your contact address, email address, those kind of basics. Then you talk about your qualification, right? So if you have bachelor degrees or that specify, and then bachelor project topic that specify, right? Then you go to any other continuing education if you have done some short courses, you know, it's part of your qualification, that specified. Then go straight to your work experience, immediate work experience. Now, what you do post-graduation is very, very pivotal because if you were for a while, I would recommend put it on, right, as work experience. Just because the way people look at that, right? So, exceptional relevant experience is what you need, right? Even if you have to write that doing short-term consultancies for companies, right? That's good. But if you say that I'm a taxi driver or shop assistant, you could even write voluntary teacher where you teach. That's more respectable. I'm not asking you to lie, but being blatant honest sometimes puts you in a box where people think you've lost touch. And if they got only one position, they want somebody who puts their best foot forward. So be careful of the details. And then when it comes to languages, obviously, if you're fluent in English, written, spoken, and reading, put it down. Now, languages doesn't mean English and Cree and French, right? The computer language Java, good old days, it used to be Fortran, C++, whatever. Put all those computer languages coding that you have expertise. Softwares, HISIS, right? Any other software that technically, those are the things you put on your CV, right? MATLAB, things like that. And then, if you have done any research work from your 4th year research project, put it down. Now, it is very common, I've seen people talking about their organizational skills. That's also good. If you are assistant in local church, youth organization, put it down. If you're a voluntary, I've said it already, but a teacher or a tourist guide directing people to safety and helping, that's also good. There's that certain professions like taxi driving, nothing to sneeze at, because honest people do taxi driving, but it doesn't look on your CV good if you are a mechanical or chemical engineer and the last 5 years you spend time doing taxi driving. Even if you put proofreader, right, correcting some technical reports for students, something like that, right? So you have to craft your CV to put professional relevant information as much as possible. Now, if what you actually did does not enhance or facilitate or foster the opportunity for you to be hired among your peers who are competing for the same job, don't put it to cut your nose to spite your face. That's all I would say. But I'm sure if you shop around on Google, you get samples of recent suggestions. But I must say, Wikipedia and Google are not absolutely bulletproof, safe place to customize your CV on samples. That we do that with great circumspection, right, with caution. Is that okay?
Yes, please, it's fine. Thank you. Okay, so the next question. It says, please, what would you say graduates from Ghana lacks compared to students from India and China that makes us disadvantaged, and what would you suggest we do to avert this?
I'll tell you this. The use of computer and computer programming. I had half of the students I've worked with from UMass that as PhD students never got to use MATLAB and certain computer software, although they have passed with distinction courses on their transcript, right? So if you are a current student at the university, just make sure you are not disadvantaged and take as many such courses that you can. I'm not talking about the one that they teach on the board, right? And I'm not belittling this by giving this joke. I saw on WhatsApp forum, a teacher teaching primary school students in Ghana with a computer board drawn on a cardboard paper. That's an extreme joke. But all I'm saying is that get the real thing. Maybe you need to talk to your head of department if the computer course you are running is just without practical, where if it is MATLAB. And I know a number of students who have passed process instrumentation and control, and I teach those courses. And you do some assignment using HISIS or MATLAB. And it's very, very sad that students with top first class from Ghana have never used such software before. Whereas second year, third year, they are playing with this courses like separation processes, transport phenomena, thermodynamics and things like that. So this is something particularly notable. But I must say, UMass students are quick learners. I give them the credit. I know a particular gentleman who did PhD with me in modeling and simulation. And he learned MATLAB from scratch within 6 months and managed to do a successful PhD modeling fouling in heat exchangers used in petroleum. Yeah, so that's the area of disadvantage. But otherwise, I'm very, very happy generally with performance of Ghana graduates. Actually, I've had the privilege of supervising about 5 students who have won top awards, which is unprecedented. And when they win, they don't just win one. They win about 2 or 3 top university medals and awards, which are very impressive. And all these have been UMass former students. That's all I could say. So what they say about UMass, even though it's a small university by numbers, being one of the best in engineering in Ghana is very, very valid. So keep rising and shining, okay? And of
Thank
course,
you so much, sir.
the only female student I managed to get from KNUS who did chemical engineering for PhD. Did an outstanding job. Always thanks me for finding a highly competent student from KNUS. So Ghana students can hold their head high. Pound for pound, they compete favorably. Excepting, of course, the weakness in computer software engineering and things like that.
Okay.
Questions more?
Thank you so much. So we take the last questions. The rest will be directed to you later on. So the last question would be, thank you, Prof, for the insightful presentation. About the ranks, is it automatic that someone like the dean is of a higher rank? What are some of the gists for our per use?
Can you please repeat?
The person said, thank you, Prof, for the insightful presentation. About the ranks, is it automatic that someone like the dean is of a higher rank? What are some of the jits for our peruse?
You mean the ranking of the grades? Is that what the question is about?
I'm not sure what the person wants to ask, but I'm sure he wants to know the kinds of people you can use for your applications in terms of the dean.
You mean the referee?
Probably, but if Samuel Eji is still on, could he please? He says supervisors. He's referring to supervisors.
The supervisor's ranking.
Yes, please.
No. The ranking is not based on whether somebody is a dean or a head of department. That is not the rank. The rank is how research active. You know, somebody may be a dean, somebody may be a lecturer, but a lecturer in our part of the world have published maybe 40 articles in 5 years. And somebody who is a dean, who is more senior, would publish 10 articles in 5 years. So the university have way of quantifying research activeness. It's got nothing to do with their position, whether they are dean, right? Now, in Australia, you may find that most people, either senior lecturer, or professor, have sites where their list of publications are shown. And you can tell whether the person, if you Google what we call Google Scholar about that person, you may get some metrics, publication output. That ranking of the supervisor is based on the publication output rather than their position of administration as a dean or head of department or head of school, right? The ranking is based on research active performance. And you can search for the person. If, for example, the person have published since 2015, 60 articles, right? Like 10 articles in a year, then he's a research active. But if you go to his website as a supervisor or as a staff, academic staff, and he has listed only 10 articles and have not updated these articles in 5-6 years. By Ghana standards, 10 may be okay for 5 years, but in Australia, 10 is too low for an academic in 5 years. So is that kind of ranking that will get you 10 points from area of research and supervisor. So that's what it means, not by position, no. Any last question before we say goodbye?
He said that would be all. The rest will be sent to you.
Okay.
Yes, please. So
I will send to Abigail the PowerPoint presentation. So any person who wants a copy.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we will take the closing remarks from Abdul Rahman Isaka. So please, if he's here,
Okay, so on behalf of the entire OSIMM Takwa Student Chapter. I would like to thank Professor Jonas Addai for taking time off his busy and professional schedule to give us such an insightful presentation. We really appreciate it, sir. I would also like to thank Mr. Henry Entry for the industry updates and to congratulate you on receiving such a prestigious award. And to all the members who joined, I hope you learned a thing or two from this presentation. So overall, I'd say this meeting was a success, mainly due to the efforts of the speaker and the commitment of the members. With this, we bring this meeting to a close.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
I
you,
hope
Professor Jonas.
you have an enjoyable day before the day finishes. And like I said, I'll share my PowerPoint presentation with all. And if anybody has questions, please, Priscilla, compile them and email them to me, and I will answer them.
Yes, please. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for the
Professor
experience.
Jonas.
Yeah,
We
thanks
are
for
most grateful.
Have a good day.
You too, sir. Bye. Please, the meeting has ended. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you learned a lot. So see you next time. Bye.